The 19th of January 2024. It's about 10 a.m. It's a good bright morning this morning. You need the heating in the house. I have heating, but doors are open and everything else. It's not too warm, even in a house, even with a fire on, it's not too warm. So it's cold enough out. But anyway, it's good hardy weather, as to say, and it proves that we're not going to fry anytime soon in our lifetime. You are never going to be so hot in Ireland that you're going to die. Don't listen to that baloney. Now, this is about gardening. There's a thing called marginal utility. It's a recognized business management thing. And marginal utility means that you take an apple and you enjoy it, and it was lovely. You take another one and it wasn't too bad, it was nice too, and you take the third one and you don't want the half of it. People get a buzz about something new. Some girl buys a hula hoop and it's great for a while, and then she throws it there. Generally speaking, when a young lad gets a car, he goes mad flying around, and he probably kill himself if he's not lucky. And then after a while, it becomes necessary to repair it and it becomes a great freedom. So with cars, marginal utility doesn't apply. You still get as much enjoyment out of a car now as you would 30 years ago. It doesn't apply. But the electric cars are a marginal utility thing. They're a big buzz. Oh, I'm green. Oh, it's great. Oh, good. Until some of the hard facts that was denied to them by the government and some of the lies are discovered, and they discover that they're not where it's at. And I've always said there's no big deal in someone buying an electric car. The big deal is someone buying it for the second time. So that's marginal utility. I think I've explained it enough. Christmas Day with youngsters, there's marginal utility with the wee cap gun or the train or anything, and then as the year goes on, it gets less and less use. That's marginal utility. Okay. With the gardening, when the economic collapse took place in 2008, all over the world and in Ireland, you'll remember it. Anyone that was around with the new leader of Fine Gael said not one red cent will go into the banks. People voted for that, and he lied about it. He told a big lie. When he got in, he put the money into the banks. So that's just how they lie to you. I'm merely reminding you of it. That's what I remember of the economic collapse. And the conditions that brought it about have not been fixed. Anyway, I had solid farmyard manure, a different thing to slurry. Cow dung, in other words. Good rank cow dung. And people rang me and said, will you sell me a trailer load? And I had the digger, so there was no loading on it, and I did. So 4 people arrived with trailers and all got a nice load of good old rank farmer manure with a few big worms stuck in the middle of it, and off they went delighted. And they put in their gardens. Don't ask me how they did it. They dug it with the spade. They dug it everywhere. The following year, only 1 came back. And the following year, none came back. And the reason is gardening is damn hard work. You have to get your plot. It's better be long. A longish plot like this, rather than a wide one, you know, like this, or a small fatty one. You want a long strip. So if you get that, you have to get it rotavated with a tractor. You have to get it ploughed with a tractor. And after that, you're into the shovel and the spade. Right? Now, it's hard work. I have most of that equipment, and I also have an excavator with a wide bucket, and you can do a bit with that as well. So when you do that with your back, you're going to be tired. The other thing is, when you get your ridges done and you're all done up, the next thing is you plant your cabbage and your lettuce. And I have to say that the thing I enjoy most about it is the cabbage. The cabbage is beautiful. Oh, it's so green and it's full of nutrients. And butterhead lettuce, they come out in a big crowd. They're absolutely lovely. They're a lovely thing. Anyway, I do onions as well and scallions. So to have a wee bit of a salad in the summertime is nice. Okay, I've said that. Now remember, when you put in your crop, there is 2 things. There's the seed you planted, and there's the seed that is in the dung. If you don't put in the dung, you'll not have the same crop. The manure, if you do put in the crop, the dung, the manure, you'll have weeds. You'll have weeds. And a weed is a plant growing in the wrong place. Neither the weeds nor the plant you set know that they're not meant to grow. They all think they're all meant to grow. And when the growth comes on in the month of April, they're going to spring up. It reminds me just about a fella. They were trying to make him a bit fancy and swanky him up a bit, and he was going to a wedding or something, and you didn't want him talking rough talk or anything like that. And someone said, uh, "Why don't you tell Charlie not to say manure, to say fertilizer?" And the the wife says, "It took me 10 years to get him to say manure." Anyway, I digress. Now, when the weeds come up, you have two choices. You can spray them. In my family, there tends to be don't like me spraying. If you spray them, there's the possibility of the chemicals getting into the ground. That's a choice you have to make. If you don't spray them, and even if you do spray them, you have to pull them with your hand. You get a pair of gloves, and if you have no gloves, you pull them anyway. And they'll be full of nettles, and they'll sting the daylights out of you. And you have to have something to kneel on. You have to have something to put your legs on that you won't absorb the water. And sometimes you won't do that either. And you have to bend the back and pull them. And you have to get round to make sure that this is the plant and this is the weed. You have to make sure when you catch it, you don't pull the two. If you do, they're gone. If you set turnips or Swedes, as they call them, something, you have to tin them out. And in the old farming way long ago, the tinning turnips involved weeding them, and you had to go laboriously up the field. And very often a youngster, maybe of 15 years of age, would be employed to tin turnips. And I knew two boys. Their mother and father died when they were very young, and the only way they could get a wee bit of money was tinning turnips for neighbours. And they'd spend, lucky enough, there'd be two of them, to spend maybe a big part of a month tinning turnips, pulling all the turnips away. You leave them about this far apart and pulling all the weeds. And that was some work. I mean, imagine them doing that now. In any event, both of those are now passed away, having lived to be 90 in one case. One of them lived to be 90, the other died younger. But the point about it is that you'd be at that, and you'd be picking spuds out of pits and all that, potatoes out of pits. I did that in my day. Now, this is all back-breaking work. And when you look at the marginal utility, it looks idyllic. Oh, going out getting your lettuce. Oh, how lovely. Or when you count the effort, the weeding, the possible spraying, the spraying of potatoes, they have to be sprayed. Oh, you can get them resistant to blight. How many times did I hear that? Oh, I have potatoes and they're resistant to blight. Good luck with that. They all rotted, every damn one. And you have to spray them with either bluestone washing soda mix or another spray. And incidentally on that, Ditain 945 and Deuter, DU-TER, was the spray that replaced the bluestone about 1965, and now they say that it was carcinogenic. In other words, it was cancer-giving. It's quite possible that spray, which has components with big long words, big long words, could actually have some impact on the potato below. The potato could absorb it, and that it gave cancer to people who ate it. I don't know if that's the case, but modern sprays are to try to avoid that, and the big growers will still use some of those chemicals, but they don't use them all the time. They'll give one major spray with it, and then as the season progresses, they'll spray them with other less harmful but less effective sprays. Anyway, that's all right. They're not going back to the bluestone as of yet. And there's Hubble, I think, is one I use. So it's more expensive as well. But anyway, you have to do all that. And the weeds will come on. And you'll do that for the first year. But the second year, you won't maybe do it. Now, the other thing to make a point here is you want to watch any lad that's thinking of getting married or having a partner of a woman. And even a woman for a man, but it's usually the other way about. I'm sure you all remember the series, and if you don't, Keeping Up Appearances, Mrs. Bouquet, it's a well worth watch. This one had big delusions of grandeur, and it was an excellent show, and there's a lot of people like that. I was up in Meath one day, and I wanted corn settings, and by the way, I planted 4 corn, that's maize, in the garden last year, and they grew. One of them died, the other 3 grew, and they grew up till I got the kernels out of them. The kernel is wrapped inside the leaves, and you know something? They were lovely. There was a lovely sweet taste of the corn, and you can buy them in some supermarkets. Lovely sweet taste when they're fresh and wet inside. In any event, I grew them. But I was up in Meath in a what do you call it, a garden centre, and there was this woman in front of me explaining to the woman who was doing the things how she made the husband put in a patio, and then she didn't like it, and she got him to take it out, and then she got him to do something else, and clearly the poor old devil was henpecked. A lot of women, and this is not against some women are mad house proud and mad garden proud. And if a fella's married to them and she's driving you and you don't do what she says, it'll be picture and no sound. Now, I don't know, is it the reverse? Are there men that insist the women do something? I'd say it is in reverse. I'd say there could be men insisting the women do the painting, and when they don't deliver, then they get attacked. I don't mean physically attacked, but they get given out to. I don't know, but I know several instances, and I'm telling you, the man that was married to this one, he had some craving because you'd never get a minute's peace, and no matter what you do for them, for the legs of Mrs. Bucket, it's never enough. So you could have a woman there saying, "Oh, what to tell down at the hairdresser? We have a garden. Oh, we have a garden. Oh, I got Simon to do the garden. Oh, yes, we have lettuce and we have cabbage. Oh, it's beautiful. We have peas. We have potatoes, everything." But she won't go out and weed. She won't go out and weed. And she left the poor old devil down on his hunkers the whole summer. You want to watch them ones. The place for them is from the word go, there's the gate, and out you go. That's the way to deal with them. So this idea of, there's two things. One, there's the enthusiasm, there's the marginal utility of getting on and getting a garden, which is for a small amount of people, but generally it's a need situation, like during the war and all that. And then there's the marginal utility. That's the marginal utility where the person that wants the result does the work. But then there's the marginal utility of where the person wants the result gets someone else to do the work. And if they won't pay for it, and I don't think you'd get a gardener to come in and dig for you now, if they won't pay for it and they won't get anyone else to do it, they'll turn on the husband and they'll abuse him to make him try and comply. That is very regular. I could name several henpecked or handbagged, as they call it, men who suffer from these ones. You want to watch them. It's a skill on how to identify them early on. So, it's hard work. Very few people will have a garden forever. There are some people who are built and cut out for it, and that's very good. But you can buy your vegetables, you can buy your spuds and everything else. And in today's world, you'd make more by buying your stuff and using the time for something else than you would growing them. At my stage of life, I still put in a bit of a garden. Yes, I love the bit of what do you call it, cabbage, and the bit of lettuce and the onions and the scallions and all that. But I keep it small, I keep it manageable. I would like to be spraying, but I would spray, but I don't want to fight with other people. Some people that I would give them the groceries, the vegetables to, might not eat them if they thought they would spray on the job. The other thing I forgot to mention there, and this is very, very important, when you have your weeding done and you have your cabbage plants coming on and they're a nice head coming on, they're about halfway there, the next thing it'll arrive in is Mr. Snail. And you'll get 55,000 remedies for Mr. Snail, including slug pellets, which they say are dangerous because the slug pellet poisons the snail's carcass and the birds eat the snail. I don't know, is that right or not? It can kill the birds, that's what they say. So you will come out someday and see your plants all covered with snails and them eaten away to the heart's content. You'll also see on cabbage in particular a small long slug, a narrow slug like a caterpillar. He's green and yellow, and you could see 5,000 of them in your head of cabbage. Now, I'm not going to win to stop that, but remember, that is heartbreaking. You could be going on the holidays, you could leave your cabbage there, you've all weeded, and you have your cabbage and your lettuce and all, and you have your plants, and you come back after your holiday, and there's these green fellas with the whole thing destroyed. And they tend to get worse the second and third year. There's also a wireworm that gets into potatoes. That's why they alternate the crops between different plots of land. The wireworm will be surprised when he has the potatoes the first year. So will the cabbage slug and all that. The second year they'll begin to realise there's handy pickings here, and they'll accumulate there. And the third year they'll move in mass, and heaps of them, and they'll eat the whole damn thing. You have to find out how to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with it, but sometimes you can put creosote on a string, and even it can't be bought now. So you see what I'm saying, folks? The gardening is hard work. It's not for everybody. Keep it small if you're doing it. And a good window box might just be as good as anything else, or maybe a box out on a table or something if you have green fingers. I and my father before me were cursed with green fingers. I have green fingers, and you'll see green things growing anywhere I am. Radishes, funniest plants you ever seen, and it is a bit of a kick like that. But I hope I have purged most of it out of my system. Having said that, I would suspect, if God spares me health, that this year I'll have a wee garden again. I'd say it'll happen. I tend to be the kind, damn it, I'll put in a bit. But that's all right. You can do that. Now, how do you get land if you haven't land? I'm sure a farmer will give you a wee plot and all that. But don't forget, it's all hard work. I remember we had a lovely plot of potatoes long ago, just down the road here, and we had a Ford Nan tractor, and there was a diesel engine in it, and something went wrong. We had a digger, so we're digging the spuds out and gathering them up, and what food we had, lovely food. It was a nice wee bit of ground too, and we're digging them up anyway. And Daddy brought the tractor up to the top of the hedge, and there was a laneway outside the hedge, a roadway, and we were digging away when didn't some wire hit on some wire on the starter connect, and the tractor started and away out into the road. I always will remember that. And there's my father looking out. I stepped back, and all I could do was laugh. I was only about 12, and he was giving out to me for laughing at him. But that happened. I always remember that, some of the memories that you have. That's it, folks. I hope now I've dealt with the gardening thing. I hope we don't go back to the point where we'll have to do this. Do you know something? If the war that's going on in the world got bad enough, oil could get scarce. Could that happen? Well, it could. There's plenty of oil, but if the ships have to be sank to get it out, and if there's bitterness, and when you have left-wing governments, like the government we have in Dublin, pushing wars, when you have the British government going over to stop Zelensky having a peace treaty with Russia at the beginning of the Ukraine war, when you have Biden, when you have Victoria Nuland, and you have all these rascals and Blinken going over determined to start a war, well, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And when you have the media blowing, oh, Trump's a monster because he's trying to bring peace to the world, well, what can you expect? If that happens, it'd take years to get the horses back. How would you get the stabling? How would you get the horses bred? And who's going to invest in breeding horses? Because it could change, the oil could come back. So you have no oil. If that happened, then you'd have to ration some little bit of oil. There might be a wee bit, and you'd have to get your crops in. The government would probably give enough to get crops in. But that would change everything, because you'd have people from the towns coming out having a share crop and all of that sort of thing. When that day comes, we'll have to deal with it. For now, thank God, we leave the growing of the potatoes and the vegetables to other people. Hopefully it's done well. They look a lot greener to me than they should be. There doesn't seem to ever be a snail in these places where they grow them. There doesn't seem to be ever a wireworm, and there doesn't ever seem to be a cabbage maggot, or what we call a cabbage slug. There, I know what the name of them is, the green and yellow fella. So that's for another day. It's hard work. Anything to do with ground is work. WORK. Folks, I think I've said enough. If you, after all that, you want to go and put in a plot, off you go. Right, thumbs up if you agree, comment underneath, keep the comments logical, and we'll see you back.